I'm Bottles.
You're not gonna introduce me, asshole?
Hey, you can introduce yourself. You've
No,
been doing it for
I'm
like
not.
the past
I'm
2
not
years.
an independent boy. All right.
Alright, that's Mori, I guess. And there's
that
like a...
sucked. Alright, I'm doing it
Alright,
from now on.
Liz. Alright, we found like a sealed file. The fuck? Bookmarks?
Do we have
I
to
guess
start
it's
the...
like...
Oh, did we save?
Oh, look, Martin Summer.
Born in Kansas City in 1929, after graduating university and working as an editor of Los Angeles Beat, I penned his debut model, The Secret Word. Secretly, it's someone else's word. In 1990, saw his return to the spotlight after a decade spent entirely under the radar. His works on countless movie scripts and his regular columns, together with his expensive knowledge, have paved the way for a string of bestsellers.
What the fuck?
Is this like a whole book?
Are we actually reading the entire chapter 1, page 5?
We're skipping pages. Oh no, it's 13, 14. I get it. This is like a whole... Is this... Wait, hold up. This is like an origin story for Hyde. Fuck it, let's read it.
Sure, why not?
I'm curious. Chapter 1. An Uneasy Feeling, Los Angeles, December 18th, 1980, 9 o'clock p.m. Twilight fell over the city of Los Angeles, drowning it in a sea of darkest night. Throughout the city, small pinpricks of light fought their way along streets and freeways, accompanied by a hubbub of rattling engines, blaring horns, and incensed yelling. Far away from this chaos, a lone car made its way along quiet side streets and parked up the curb by Cape West Apartments. As the engine stopped, the door was kicked open and a man emerged, gruffly cursing the cold weather. Clutching his thick jacket around a plain white shirt and black tie, the man reached a gloved hand into the car and withdrew his briefcase. Drawing himself up to his full 6-foot height, he slammed the door shut with his free hand and grasped the lapels of his jacket, defending himself against the bitter cold, heels dragging with the weight of the world. The man shuffled towards the front door of the building. His name was Kyle Hyde, a door-to-door salesman for Red Crown. Hyde's job took him up and down the Californian coast, but it was this place, Cape West Apartments, specifically room 202, that he called home. As Hyde approached the small staircase leading up to the front door, he stopped and gazed at the sliver of light poking out from between the doors. Damn it, what a day. Hyde was a rational, no-nonsense man. Panic and stress were usually foreign words to him, but today was different. A voice rang out in his head like a broken record, repeating the same phrase over and over. That's Ed.
You know what, Hyde? I've had enough of your bull. You're fired!
It was 4 years now since Hyde had packed in his job as a New York detective and moved all the way across the country to California. He had taken the salesman job as an in-betweener, something to put food on the table while he searched for a proper job, and here he was, still doing it. He was honestly surprised that it had taken him this long to be fired. He wasn't exactly the best salesman in the world. When Hyde first moved to LA, he had been contacted by Ed, an old acquaintance. Ed's offer of a job as a door-to-door salesman had baffled Hyde at first. Hyde had never been a people person, so it seemed like the worst job imaginable for him. He had to admit, though, that Ed's offer was a generous one. Ed was the only person in LA who knew Hyde's secret, and yet he was still willing to hire him. Hyde's secret was the one keeping him from moving on for the past 4 years. He was in search of his ex-partner, Brian Bradley. Bradley had disappeared 4 years earlier. He was undercover investigating a crime syndicate called Nile, and it was discovered that he was on the take and leaking police information to them. When Hyde found out, he confronted Bradley on a pier and shot him. Bradley fell into the water and Hyde never saw him again. He had been searching for him ever since to ask him the simple question, why did you do it? Why did you betray the Force and your partner? After Bradley's disappearance, the brass closed the Nile case. Hyde was furious and he quit on the spot. Knowing all of this, Ed had no reservations about offering Hyde the salesman job. Ed was an ex-cop as well, having made his way through the LAPD, so perhaps he had felt some empathy for Hyde. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Hyde to become complacent. He began slacking off jobs he didn't like, ignoring his pager for extended periods of time, and being generally unreliable. It had all come to a head that very day, with Ed yelling down the phone.
You know what, Hyde? I've had enough of your bull. You're fired!
Ed's angry voice still stinging like a slap across the face. Hyde took a deep breath and began to ascend the stairs to the front door. As he was going up, the door opened and someone came out.
Who's that?
The person in question was a smartly dressed woman with a wide-brimmed hat and large sunglasses. Hyde's first impression was that she was fairly young and not very subtle about her desire for privacy if she felt the need to cover up so much at this time of night. The two passed each other on the stairs without a word. Hyde grabbed the door handle and paused, turning for another look at the mysterious woman. She was getting into a car at the foot of the stairs. She started the engine and turned on the piercing headlights. As she rolled up her window, Hyde caught a glimpse of her profile. Don't know her. With that, Hyde pushed on the front door, which cracked open. As soon as he saw who was standing in the lobby, he knew his bad day wasn't over yet. Greeting Hyde like an old friend was his neighbor from 201, Tony Wolfe. A musician by trade, albeit not a successful one. Hey man, long time no see, Tony said cheerfully. Tony's lax demeanor always rubbed Hyde the wrong way. The man was practically penniless, and yet his attitude settings still managed to be jammed on cloud 9. Although Hyde reasoned to himself if Tony had been here the whole time, he might actually be useful for once. Hyde asked what the woman in the hat, Hyde asked about the woman in the hat. Tony responded in typical style. Lovely lady. No idea who she was, but wasn't she classy? Tony knew every woman in the building on a first-name basis. If anyone could have identified her, it was him. Hyde, on the other hand, was hardly ever at home thanks to his job. As a result, he barely knew any of the other tenants. He had got what he wanted from Tony, so he made for the stairs. Whoa, man, Tony cut in. You're taking off already. No chit-chat for your old pal Tony. Hyde paused, going over what Tony had said. Old pals? After the stunts he's pulled on me in the past? Someone needed to be set straight. Listen, Tony, we just live in the same building, Hyde said. Doesn't exactly make us best friends, you know. As 4-year neighbors, Tony clearly thought the two of them were like family. Hyde, of course, thought otherwise. Then, Tony asked the question Hyde had been waiting for since the start of the conversation. Here's the deal, Tony began. I got this need for a little cash real quick. My mom's sick and had to check into the hospital. You know how it is. So anyway, I need to scrape together $1,000 to cover it all. Hyde wasn't buying any of it. 2 weeks earlier, Tony had come to him with a sob story about his little brother being sent to hospital. Out of the goodness of his heart, Hyde had given him the money for a taxi ride. He later found out that Tony had used the cash to take a girl out on a date. Oh man, knew I should have gone teetotal. Huh? Tony whined. Hyde knew that he shouldn't have been surprised, but he still felt cheated. A bar tab. Big surprise there. Tony, seeing the obvious signs of Hyde's anger, apologized sincerely. Cross my heart, I won't try a stunt like that again. You got my word. Yeah, and the rest, Hyde retorted. I hear the same thing every month. I predict I'll be hearing it next month, too. Wait, what? Tony said, nonplussed. There won't be a next month. This month's all we got left. Hyde stared back. What do you mean all we've got left? Was Tony moving? Possibly to a place with lower rent given his financial situation? Tony merely shot Hyde a suspicious look. Man, I'm talking about the letter Mag sent out. Tell me you got the letter. Would have arrived in your mailbox about a week ago. We all got one. Hyde barely even checked his mail once a week. He wasn't interested in flyers and bills. According to Tony, the landlady, Margaret Patrice, had sent out a letter a week ago. The letter said that the building was up for sale and asked all residents to pack up and leave. And I had no idea why. What a day. What a damn day. This was turning out to be the worst day of Kyle Hyde's life. At least since that day at the pier. Fired from his job, kicked out of his apartment.
Hey, guys.
The voice drifted down the stairs, and it was followed down by a young, vivacious woman bouncing from step to step. Tony's face lit up, bouncing. She was Betty Meyer from room 203. She lived down the hall from Hyde and worked in a shop selling fashion accessories.
So, what are you guys talking about?
She asked. Before Hyde could protest, Tony told her the whole story.
No way. He didn't know?
Betty snorted.
That's so like you, Kyle. You always act so focused. Then again, I guess we all have our quirks.
Hyde shrugged it off. Betty was just like Tony, acting like they were all living in a college dorm. He had no time for their antics. Tony and Betty started chatting about the big move. Betty had apparently already found a new place to live. When Tony complained about her not telling him, she gently reminded him of the same thing Hyde had just said, that they were living in the same building, but they weren't really friends.
Anyway, I've got a dash. Don't want to be late for my date.
Betty headed out the door at top speed, leaving Tony gazing wistfully after her. Hyde knew he was going a bit too far, but he couldn't help himself. Face it, Tony. You don't exactly exude charisma. Tony balked. Yeah, thanks for that, friend. Way to kick a man when he's down, right? He shook his head. Listen, I'm off for a walk. Later. Tony took off
What
out
about
the
your
front
mom?
door. Fuck her. With both of the walking loudspeakers gone, Hyde was finally able to think again. Oh god, here comes that voice. He tightened his grip on his briefcase and continued on the staircase. Shower time, he thought. Maybe I can wash this hellish day away.
What was this?
Good evening, Mr. Hyde.
The voice came from behind.
Oh, right.
And it belonged to a petite middle-aged woman in a black dress. Hyde knew the voice right away. Margaret Patrice, the landlady of Cape West Apartments. She had bought up the building when it was still Hotel Cape West, and had refurbished it into apartments. As landlady, that was horrible line read, by the way. As landlady, she lived on the first floor. The other residents generally referred to her as Mags, half out of affection and half out of irony, given her steely personality. Mags had kept the whole building in very good shape over the years, despite its age. She got to the point straight away.
Mr. Hyde, I always check the mailboxes when I pass, and yours is practically overflowing.
Hyde knew there was no point in arguing with Mags, so he
You want me to
simply...
get you a drink?
I'm okay. So he simply nodded and promised he would deal with the matter.
Also,
Mags continued.
there was something I wanted you to pass on to Mr. Wolf. Please ask him to kindly furnish me with the 4 months worth of rent that he owes me.
Hyde had always been amazed at Mag's ability to remain cool and composed, even in frustrating situations like this. Tony was lucky he went out when he did, mused Hyde. But he did have to leave me here to be scolded by the school teacher. It occurred to him that Tony wasn't the only one behind on his rent, and just as he realized that, Mag's voiced the thought.
And by the way, Mr. Hyde, I believe you are 2 months behind on your own rent. I'd appreciate it if you could pay me the $400 you owe by the end of the week.
Hyde could only nod. Mags nodded back briskly and made to return into her apartment. Before you go, Hyde said, mind if I ask you something? Why did you decide to sell this place all of a sudden?
Ah,
Said Mags.
I had a feeling you would ask. Originally, I had no intention of giving this place up.
Hyde wasn't surprised. Cape West Apartments was a 4-story building with a cafe on the first floor. It's quite old, but it had a mellow, relaxing atmosphere to it. The 4th floor had never been renovated and still had the old hotel rooms on it, but almost every other room was full. From Hyde's perspective, it looked like a money machine. Mags continued.
But you know, sometimes unexpected things happen and, well, it's complicated.
Complicated? What's so complicated? Hyde pressed further about Mag's situation, to which she pointed her finger at him and bluntly replied,
It's not easy for a widow like me to take care of a place like this, you know. I can trust you to understand that, can't I?
Hyde didn't have too much difficulty understanding her situation. His mother Jeannie had raised him on her own after his father died. Having seen what she had gone through firsthand, he wasn't envious of Mags's position.
Also, there are land sharks in the area who are putting me under some pressure. And there are other reasons I will not go into because frankly it's none of your concern. Good evening, Mr. Hyde. I forgot what time of day it was.
With that, she turned and walked demurely back into her room, closing the door in what Hyde considered to be an offensively polite fashion. He never could figure out what made him so uneasy around Mags. Maybe it was her dress, her stern hair, bun on her general mannerisms. Hyde wasn't sure. As he had promised, Hyde went to take a look at his mailbox. He also wanted to see the letter that Tony was talking about. As Mags had said, the mailbox was overflowing with envelopes. Hyde entered the code on the lock, and the mail stack pushed the door open for him, envelopes cascading all over the floor. Hyde rifled through the envelopes until he found the one from Mags. He ripped it open, pulled out the letter, and read,
My dear tenants, after much deliberation, I have chosen to sell this property. The new owner plans to have the building demolished, so it is my unfortunate duty to inform you of the need to vacate at your earliest convenience. Furthermore, further information will be posted on the notice board in the coming days. December 10th, Margaret Patrice.
So it was true. They had to vacate their apartments, and everyone else had known about this for over a week. With a sinking feeling, Hyde made for the stairs and finally managed to get to the second floor without interruption. When he reached the second floor, he nearly ran into someone about to descend the stairs. He recognized the man immediately as Dylan Fitcher, the handyman from room 304. That was all Hyde knew about him. He was quiet, unassuming. Hyde had noticed a somewhat gloomy manner about the man. He had a tendency to look down at the floor as he walked. He was carrying a hammer, which to Hyde seemed somewhat suspicious. But upon questioning him, Hyde discovered that Mags had asked Dylan to handle maintenance throughout the building. Dylan explained in his meek voice that he was to look after the building right up until his deeds were signed. How like Mags, thought Hyde. That's your voice, by the way.
Oh, this one's mine.
Oh, but what was his voice again? I'm trying to remember what it was.
I think it was just...
Oh, I think I remember now.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, your door's fine.
Dylan murmured before continuing down the stairs. Hyde didn't care as long as it opened and closed. He headed down the corridor and unlocked his door. As he entered the room, something fell to the floor. Reaching down, he picked up the small envelope which he realized been lodged between the door and the frame. This is a long book.
I think this is just a recap of everything.
Of just the chapter. How long does it go? Because if it's the beginning part...
We've been basically
classified!
reading...
Whoa. Notes concerning Kyle Hyde. Only read if confronted by difficulties. Oh! It tells us what happens later in the game, so if we get stuck, we can just do what it says. Interesting.
That's very interesting.
Alright, well, that was an interesting episode of recapping what happened in the first
Yeah, it's
chapter.
like one of those
It was like,
episode 12.5 in an anime.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to continue this next time. If you like the video, like and comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Hit that bell notification if you want to see the next episode of Last Window, The Secret of Cape West. Question of the day. Do you like it when animes, or even TV shows in general, have like a recap episode or like a clip show episode? Or as they like to call it, like the glass bottle episode?
Oh. Is that what they call it sometimes?
Yeah,
Huh.
because it's like they trap the characters in a glass bottle so that all they can do is reminisce about the past.
Oh.
And then Teen Titans Go took that literally and literally trapped them in a glass bottle and had them reminisce about previous episodes.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I'm Bottles.
I'm Mori.
See you later.